Good morning, Tampa Bay, Tuesday, October 25th. Channelside in the morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network. Fans are speaking up, man. Fans are starting to place the blame, right? And they're starting to kind of place the blame with reason, not just like aimlessly, blindlessly placing blame, because we see that happen a lot, right? We see a lot of times where fans will just place blame, after a big loss. It's so and so's fault. After a collapse, it's so and so's fault. But there's never really any like merit to these things, right? Where it's just lashing out, being an angry fan, heat of the moment, things happen, you didn't want them to happen, that's part of fandom in sports, right? That's part of being a fan. So we're going to talk about where the fans are placing the blame. We're going to kind of dissect and figure out where I think fans are wrong, where fans are possibly right. We'll get into the Magic with another tough loss. Unfortunately, another tough loss last night. This time was not pretty, man. It was at the hands. Not a fan, but it was at the hands of the New York Knicks. And where I struggle with this is just, it's the Knicks, man. Nobody's ever really checking for the New York Knicks, but there are areas of opportunity that I'm noticing for this Magic team, and it's been routinely and relatively consistent through the first 4 games of the season. Obviously starting 0-4 is never a good sign. That's never where you want to be, but while there are positives, you are noticing where there are areas of opportunity for improvement for this team. So hopefully they do make some changes and make some adjustments so they can start piling together and putting together some wins. Of course, obviously, tonight the Lightning are back on the ice all the way out in Tinseltown as they take on the LA Kings, who is staying up for the 10:30 p.m. puck drop as the Lightning are favored. They're minus 130 over the Kings. Probably going to be one of those games that doesn't really get watched. I think it's safe for all of us to say this at this point. When it's late, it's late. That's the problem with these West Coast games. Like growing up, watching the Red Wings play, when the Red Wings were in the Western Conference, and you're just like, damn, man, like they've got all of these. You're in the Eastern time zone when you're in Detroit. But when they're in the Western Conference and like routinely, if they're not playing like the Chicago Blackhawks or they're not playing in Detroit, they're all 10:30 p.m. puck drops. And you're like, what the hell is going on? So yeah, this is probably going to be one of those skippable games. At least because it's early in the season. It's too damn late, man. I'm 36 years old. I got stuff to do. I've got to be live with you tomorrow at 8 a.m. This game's going on until at least 1:30 in the morning here. I can't do that, man. My resiliency is not where it used to be. Good morning, Jay, in the chat. Man, I guess there's also, yes, the Rays are not playing baseball right now. Unfortunately, they got eliminated in the wild card series against the Cleveland Guardians. But there is stadium talk again for the Tampa Bay Rays. This time it is in Tampa, and they are looking at moving the stadium between the Florida Aquarium and Ybor on Channelside, right there on the waterfront, right there in that area, which is a great location. But man, there's got to be a lot of displaced buildings. They're gonna have to move the marine repair docks. Like, there's a lot of things that have to be, a lot of things have to fall in the right place for that to happen. And look, we have to come to grips that the Rays aren't coming to Tampa. We have to come to terms with that. This is our team. The stadium sucks to drive to. The stadium sucks to sit in. Yes, they're going to rebuild and probably end up revamping the stadium because that seems like the most feasible option that we have seen thus far. But it's still, I mean, obviously it's not what we hoped for, right? We want the Rays on this side of the bay. That's what we want. We don't want them in Pinellas. And it's nothing against Pinellas or St. Pete, but it's just a pain in the ass to get to. Like when I'm going to Raymond James, if I'm not taking the back roads, if I'm taking the Selman, when I merge onto I-4 and you have to like immediately halt and slam on your brakes, that still is a shorter amount of time. It's 2 miles further from my house than Tropicana Field is, but it's almost an hour closer. Like that's all that's all I need to know that I'm not going to very many Rays games. That's why when we get our beat reporter, buddy, you got to be in you got to be south of Pinellas County or directly into Pinellas County. Yeah. We announced Ryan Jensen's salute for service nomination yesterday. Beautiful. Fourth consecutive nomination for Ryan Jensen. If only Ryan Jensen could salute the offensive lineman for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and get something working right for this offense. Because it ain't working. It's broke. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are broke. They're broken and basically broke. They've got just under 3.6 million in cap space. That's not enough money to do anything. We can talk about re-signing Ndamukong Suh all we want. Look at the contracts that Suh has signed. And then look at the Bucs numbers right now. Look at their rushing defense, which is completely fallen apart. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers need Ndamukong Suh more than Ndamukong Suh needs the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is not signing for $3 million. Why would he sign for $3 million? Why would he come out of retirement to play for a team that looks like it might make the playoffs at this point of the season? We're nearly halfway through the season, and we don't have an identity for this team other than underachieving. Said at the top of the show, fans are starting to place blame. It's going anywhere from Todd Bowles to Byron Leftwich to Tom Brady. All of them kind of have a little bit of merit, right? All of them kind of have a little merit. But here's the thing for me. For me, it's Todd Bowles. It starts, and this is the same thing with any team. Right? When a team is underperforming and a team is not living up to expectations and they're playing poorly, they're executing poorly, you always have to look to the head coach. The head coach is the leader of the team. When somebody goes, it's always the head coach first. It's never the offensive coordinator. It's always the head coach. The head coach is in charge. So if Todd Bowles is the head coach, it starts with Todd Bowles. As a head coach, through this season, Todd Bowles is 27-44 in his career as a head coach. As a defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles is 52-29 for his career. Todd Bowles isn't a head coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. We were ecstatic when BA stepped down and said we're handing over the keys to Todd Bowles. You had the negative Nancy's that go, yeah, but he sucked with the Jets. You're like, yeah, but he's also already has a camaraderie with this team. This team already knows who Todd Bowles is. Todd Bowles understands the dynamics of this team. And this is a much better situation than his time with the Jets. Right? His first season with the Jets, everything was great. He had LaDainian Tomlinson, Mark Sanchez was playing well. I can't even remember who he had as wide receivers, but everything was clicking properly. You know, it's not the same. It's not the same when Todd Bowles is the head coach. It was a better situation, and the result right now is still the same as it was when he was the head coach of a much worse situation with the New York Jets. Some people are born built to lead, and some people aren't. Todd Bowles is not that guy. He's not. He's showing us that right now. He's shown us that in the past. Fantastic defensive coordinator. Turned every defense around that he has been in charge of. But when he takes the reins as the ringleader for the team, it's not good enough. It's just not. We're literally seeing it play out the same way it played out with the New York Jets. His first season, he had a star team. He had Darrelle Revis. Like, he had everybody was in place. Defense was in place. Offense was in place. They had one good year, and then the wheels fell off. We're not even getting one good year out of him here in Tampa. We're 3-4, and we're lucky that we've got 3 wins. We could very easily only have 1 win at this point of the season. Todd Bowles is not the leader that you need when you've got all of these like eccentric big egos. Jay in the chat, you just hit the nail on the head. Bruce Arians is the guy that can control this. Right? Bruce Arians can control egos because he'll shut you down. He doesn't care who you are. You're here to do a job. Bill Belichick can control egos. How many times did you see, Randy Moss is a problem? Went to New England, was just fine. Antonio Brown was a problem. Went to New England, he was fine. The only reason they had to cut him is because of the legal troubles off of the field that forced Robert Kraft's hand. But Antonio Brown was not a problem while he was in New England. Randy Moss was okay. All of these guys, like, you have certain coaches that can control egos, and Todd Bowles is just not one of those coaches. He cannot control. He can't keep, and it's weird, right? Because he did just fine with the egos on the defensive side when he was the defensive coordinator. And maybe it's just because that was his sole focus, was the defensive side of the ball. Maybe that's part of the reason why. I feel like players right now are looking at Byron Leftwich going, yeah, we don't need you. We won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. We've got a stacked roster. Like, it's they're looking at Todd Bowles the same way. Like, hey, yeah, who are you? You're a defensive-minded head coach, and our defense is falling every single week. Since week 3, our defense is falling lower and lower and lower in the rankings. I'm tired of press conferences. Where you've got coaches and you've got players sitting there going, well, leaders got to lead. We're grown men. We got to figure it out. We practice hard. It just, it's execution. Doesn't translate to the field. That's coaching. If you're practicing hard and then you're playing like crap on the field, that is coaching. That has nothing to do with players. You're not preparing your players to play, or you're not corralling your players and getting them ready to play and keeping their egos and their feelings and their emotions in check and playing as a unified front. That's the problem. Are there guys on the team like Mike Evans, right? We'll use Mike Evans as an example. Perfect team guy. You see Mike Evans, we saw it last year when Antonio Brown was having his meltdown against the Jets. Who was the only guy to go over to Antonio Brown to try and get him to calm down? It was Mike Evans. Right? It wasn't Tom Brady. It wasn't Bruce Arians. It wasn't Todd Bowles. It wasn't Leonard Fournette. It was Mike Evans. I mean, there's team guys, and then there's I'm in it for myself guys. I'm starting to feel like we're seeing Tom Brady play for Tom Brady and not for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. We're seeing, and here's the thing is we're seeing a lot of empty stats from Tom Brady. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing stat padding right now, 7 weeks into the season from Tom Brady. Outside, he can't score a touchdown to save his life. He's got 8 touchdowns on the season, 8 touchdowns in 7 games. Hell, some of you, myself included, some of you were sitting here telling me, "Oh, Tom Brady's gonna throw 50 touchdowns this season." We all thought that. And you cannot tell me that the Bucs offense is struggling because Julio Jones hasn't played. Did we blow that signing by picking up Julio Jones? Possibly. Did we blow the signing with Russell Gage thus far? Possibly. Russell Gage is not proven to be worth $3 million, let alone 10. Russell Gage is now getting an MRI on his hamstring. Likely out on Thursday. Antoine Winfield, likely out on Thursday in the concussion protocol. Our players are dropping like flies. We know how to live by the next man up mentality in Tampa. We had to do it last season. We went to the NFC Championship. It's not a new strategy for the Buccaneers to have to live by next man up. But the problem is the current guys that are up aren't playing well anyway. And it's like there's nothing to play for. We can talk about the lack of fire and the lack of passion all that we want, but that again goes back to coaching. If you're not firing your players up, if you're not getting them excited, if you're not getting them amped up and ready for game day every single Sunday, Thursday, or Monday, that's on the coach. So then you say, okay, so let's say it is Todd Bowles. Where do you go from there? Bruce Arians is not going to come back mid-season. Bruce Arians isn't going to come back at all. What if the rift with Brady and Arians actually was a real thing? Let's throw this out there. Let's say that this was a real problem between Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. Let's say it's a real problem, right? That goes to show me that it's more of a Tom Brady problem than it is a Bruce Arians problem, right? That's what that tells me. Tom Brady doesn't want to take shit from anybody. Tom Brady doesn't want to hear Bruce Arians calling plays, calling audibles, saying, "Hey, you screwed up here. Hey, you did that." Like, there's a desperation, at least amongst the fans. And here's the problem: is the fans are showing more desperation right now with the Buccaneers sitting at 3-4 than it seems that the Buccaneers are showing on the field. You let Marcus Mariota run for 51 yards and the Atlanta Falcons run for 157 yards without Cordero Patterson. What do you think the Baltimore Ravens are going to do to your defensive ass on Thursday. Lamar Jackson is the 5th leading rusher in the NFL currently. What do you think he is going to do with your defense that is allowing damn near double what it was the first quarter of the season? You're going to be absolutely obliterated. Devin White, terrible in coverage. Mark Andrews is going to be open in the middle of the field all game long, especially with Antoine Winfield not able to rush in on Lamar Jackson and make him throw quicker passes than he wants to. This team is in trouble. You are on a realistic verge of being 3-5. And that's not even the problem. The problem's not this. It's not even your record, because it's deeper than your record. Your record is reflective of the problems that you already have in-house. Jay in the chat says he thinks they're going to put a 50 burger up. If they put up 50 points on us Thursday night, I'm probably getting my media credentials revoked for life based off of what I'm going to be saying on Friday. It'll be entertaining as hell, but it'll be very detrimental because there's nobody else. But if they put up 50 points, the season's done. The season, where they're playing right now, if they get into the playoffs, they're going to get bounced in the first round anyway. They're going to get bounced in the wild card. That's what it's going to look like regardless, based off what we're seeing on this team. I don't care when Julio Jones comes back. I don't. I love Julio Jones. I'm happy that he's on the roster, but he's not going to be the difference for this team. Julio Jones at this stage of his career is better off the field than he is on the field, teaching these younger guys, helping Brashad Perriman round it out, helping Scotty Miller not be a total bum. Maybe spend a little more time with Scotty. But I think Julio Jones is better off of the field than he is on the field at this stage in his career. He can't stay healthy. That's fine. You've had a long career. You played 11 seasons in the NFL. You're one of you're at least for our generation, you're one of the best receivers that we've seen. We take a Juwan Howard role when he was with the Miami Heat for 4 seasons, but never actually played. Take Udonis Haslem role, also with the Miami Heat, and just and help create winning mindsets for your teammates, because that's as good as he is right now. When has Scotty not been a total bum? Well, I guess it's subjective, right? Remember, Scotty Miller was kept on this team because of his presence on special teams over Tyler Johnson. Now, Tyler Johnson, you don't hear about Tyler Johnson in Houston for a reason as well, right? But the sole reason we were told Scotty Miller made this team was because of special teams. And I've seen, off the top of my head, Scotty Miller whiff on 3 tackles in punt coverage on special teams. So, I don't know. That's a coaching decision again. Right? That's another coaching decision, was to keep Scotty Miller because of his contributions on special teams when he has failed to contribute on special teams. Right? We've got Jalen Darden returning punts, who looks like he's going on a Sunday stroll when he's returning punts. We're seeing no explosiveness from Jalen Darden. Again, where does that boil back down to? To your coaching. Leonard Fournette can't break a tackle to save his life. Talked about it yesterday. Every 24 carries, he breaks one tackle. Dameon Pierce has 3 more carries than Leonard Fournette does. Leonard Fournette has 103 carries on the season and 8 broken tackles. Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans has 106 carries and 38 broken tackles. Yards after contact, Leonard Fournette has 2.33 yards after contact. Dameon Pierce has 3.8 yards after contact. That's a problem. That's, again, falling down on coaching. So if you replace Todd Bowles, that brings us all the way back full circle. If we replace Todd Bowles, where does this team go? Who is the next guy? Are you going to tell me Harold Goodwin? I know some morons are saying, yeah, let's promote Harold Goodwin. Let's promote. Look, Harold Goodwin is awesome. I have talked to this man on several occasions. He is an awesome, awesome person. He is very good at what he does. But can you really promote somebody whose main area of expertise is one of the worst in the NFL currently? Now, it's not necessarily by his doing, right? When a running back gets the ball, the running back can choose where he's going to go based off of the vision that he's using. If you're in the backfield and you see a hole opening up on the left side, take that hole. But that's not what Leonard Fournette's doing. Leonard Fournette, we talk about all the time, a big beastly dude. He's gonna overpower most linebackers, and he's gonna obliterate your secondary. He's not even getting there. He's not even getting to that second level of the defense. What, once or twice a game, and then he's done for the rest of the game because they've already abandoned the run anyway. The offensive line is much better at run blocking than they are at pass blocking, and we can't run the ball. I find it crazy. Do you remember before the season started, my very last hot take was that Rachaad White was going to take over the starting running back role from Leonard Fournette by the end of the season? I think we're going to see that. Based off what we're seeing from Leonard Fournette, I really strongly believe we are going to see Leonard Fournette benched. Hell, we might even see players start getting traded away. I'm telling you. I said this yesterday, you got to make a splash. You have to. You have to make some sort of splash. You have to shake things up. And if I'm Todd Bowles, I can't sit down right now because my seat is so hot. And I'm telling Jason Light, you know what? We need to wake these sons of bitches up. We need to take some big name. We need to take a Leonard Fournette or a Shaq Barrett, who's kind of underperforming lately, but Shaq Barrett, Leonard Fournette. And I'm just rattling off some of the bigger names based off of like, oh, this name would generate interest. They're underperforming, but this name would generate interest. A Devin White. And I even said yesterday, it's a cause. It's almost like a wrong place, wrong time. But I would even be A-okay trading somebody like a Chris Godwin or a Vita. Vita Vea is actually our worst interior defensive lineman this season in terms of pass rush and run block and run stop. He is our worst interior defensive lineman this season. Nunez Roches is better. Logan Hall is better. He is our worst person right now. So it's Guys are going to have bad games. They're going to have bad seasons. Right? Vita set the bar very, very high for himself. Just like Devin White set the bar very high his rookie season and never lived back up to what we saw his rookie season when you're like, oh my God, we got the next Ray Lewis here. Not really. Didn't really work out that way. You have to make a splash. And that's what I'm saying. If I'm Todd Bowles, I know I'm sitting on the hot seat right now. I've got a Super Bowl, a preseason Super Bowl favorite currently sitting 3-4. And the only reason they're sitting 3-4 is because they beat the second team that's supposed to not be good by 6 points or 5 points, whatever. I make a splash. Nobody, and if you, unless you have a no trade clause, right? I did research yesterday. Tom Brady does have a no trade clause as part of the restructuring that they did in April, right? So he does have a no trade clause now. He didn't before, but he does now. So unless you have a no trade clause, you are not off limits. Trade somebody like a Carlton Davis. I love Carlton Davis. Love Carlton Davis's dad. Great family, great people. He's on the books for $15 million next season, guys. Is that a $15 million cornerback? I can't think of if I'm being totally honest, I can't think of any cornerback in the league outside of maybe like Jalen Ramsey, but even he's been burnt this season. I can't think of a cornerback in the league that is worth that amount of money right now. Unless you've got a guy that can literally be out there on an island and completely, like I'll use Darius Slay as an example. Darius Slay, I would be okay with paying $15 million to. Who do we think is a more solid cornerback, Darius Slay or Carlton Davis? And let's be honest with ourselves. Let's take our ties away from Carlton Davis. Let's take those away right now. Who would you rather have on your team? Let's say you're doing a Madden fantasy draft and your next position up is cornerback and there's nobody taken off the table yet. Are you taking Carlton Davis before Darius Slay or Jalen Ramsey? Marlon Humphrey? I don't think so. Xavier Howard? Xavier Howard, I think, is probably the closest comparison to Carlton Davis, except Xavier Howard just gets a lot more interceptions. I think that's the closest comparison. They're both very physical. They're both very handsy. There's no way you're taking Carlton Davis over Darius Slay or Jalen Ramsey. There's no way that you can sit there with a straight face and say you're taking Carlton Davis over Darius Slay or Jalen Ramsey. Stop it right now, Jay. You have to make a splash. Todd Bowles has to make a splash. And this is just for Todd Bowles to save his job. Unless there's some sort of drastic turnaround. Look, the Bucks, for me, I feel like the Bucks need to at least make the Super Bowl for Todd Bowles to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next season. Because you took the roster that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, that was in the NFC Championship last season, and you completely crushed it. And we can't for those of you who are still sitting on that Rob Gronkowski train on the bandwagon, get off of it. Rob Gronkowski is not the reason why the Buccaneers are 3-4. Cade Otton and Cameron Brate both have better grades through the first 7 weeks of this season than Rob Gronkowski did through the first 7 weeks of either season he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're doing fine at tight end. Tight end is not the issue. Our tight ends are currently blocking better than our offensive line. It is not the tight ends that are the problem. So get off of we need to bring Rob Gronkowski back. We don't need any more names. We could sign Odell Beckham Jr. and the problems are still here. We could sign Rob Gronkowski and the problems are still here. Get off of the Rob Gronkowski bandwagon, please. It's ridiculous. There's no reason to sit here and go, oh, Rob Gronkowski. Yeah. Rob Gronkowski is the reason why we're giving up 147 yards on the ground on defense. Like, come on. I mean, Jesus. It's crazy to me that we're still 7 weeks in. Like, and that just tells me that, you know, we're box score readers. When we say things like we need Rob Gronkowski back, we're just reading box scores. We're not actually diving into any of the stats, right? You know, Kyle Rudolph, Jay in the chat just brought up Kyle Rudolph. He's got a couple catches this season, but he's relatively not even been there. He's been a healthy scratch for some of these games because the other tight ends ahead of him are playing well. They didn't bring in Kyle Rudolph to sit Keeft and to sit Cade Otton. They brought in Kyle Rudolph to help elevate them. And if they were not performing well, now you've got your fail-safe in Kyle Rudolph. And they have not needed him because the guys ahead of him are playing so well. It's crazy. We don't need Rob Gronkowski. We need a shit ton of help on defense. We need somebody to come in, somebody to coach these players, somebody to rally the troops, because it's not Todd Bowles. He can talk about that internal fire that he has inside of him all he wants. You can talk about that all you want, buddy. But that's not doing anything for you. That's not getting these guys to play as a unit. And that's the struggle right now for me when I watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is I am seeing, especially on defense, I'm seeing Vita Vea play for Vita Vea. I'm seeing Devin White play for Devin White. I'm seeing Mike Edwards play for Mike Edwards. I'm not seeing guys play to help the guy next to them. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing a team effort. We're seeing individual efforts. And that's why the Buccaneers can barely beat the Atlanta Falcons and lose to the Steelers and lose to the Carolina Panthers. Sure, Mike Evans catches the pass from Tom Brady at the beginning of the game. Well, 7 points for the Bucs. They didn't do anything after that. Mike said himself, one play of the game is not going to change the outcome of how we played. If I catch that, it's not going to change the outcome of how we played for the remainder of the game. Did it take the wind out of our sails? Sure. But your quarterback's been in the league for 2 decades. If he can't figure out how to rally your offense, that's not on that's on all of you. That's just saying, I don't care. That's what that's telling me. You know what? Whatever. Let's just get through the season. You know, we're going to blink. This season's going to be over. Tom Brady's going to be gone. Todd Bowles is likely going to be gone. We're still going to have Leonard Fournette under contract. Unless we make some sort of trade before the trade deadline here. Is Leonard Fournette living up to the money? Do you remember when Leonard Fournette was holding out because he wanted top running back money? We've got all of these like egocentric, ego tripping guys. Like, I love Leonard Fournette. I liked Leonard Fournette at LSU. I liked him in Jacksonville. I love him here with the Bucs. But you're not getting it done. You can't demand top money and get 2.3 yards after contact and break and break a tackle every 24 carries. You cannot demand top money and have those numbers. Yards after contact, broken tackles, those are directly on the running back. Yards before contact, that's on the offensive line. Sure, Leonard Fournette doesn't fumble the ball. That's great. But he didn't do anything else with it. Deadly as a pass catcher, but you're not going to pay your pass catching only running back top running back money. I feel like the way that this Buccaneers team is operating right now, if Todd Bowles says, you know what, this next game, or you know what, we're evaluating everybody through practice this week. If I don't think you practice as hard as you should, you're not playing in this next game. Why not do that? Because then you're really going to see who's in it for the team and who's in it for themselves. Do you really think that if Todd Bowles looks at Leonard Fournette and says, "Hey, you're out for Thursday. We're rolling with Rashad, and we're rolling with Kashawn. You're out for Thursday." Do you think that he's not going to throw it? Do you think he's not going to be pissed and throw a temper tantrum? If Leonard Fournette doesn't play, and he's not the only one. I'm just using him as the example. We're going to hear on Friday that Leonard Fournette has demanded a trade. Turn on your notifications from me and Rappaport, because that's going to be the word out of Tampa Bay is so-and-so has demanded a trade. That's what's going to happen because we've got too many egos. There's too many Chiefs and not enough Indians. Can I even say that phrase in 2022 anymore? I don't know of another way to use it. I'm an old soul. I apologize. But that's the problem. Too many chefs in the kitchen. Too many hands in the cookie jar. Right? Like, that's the problem. There's too many guys that think that they are something instead of falling in line. That's the problem. And then to add fuel to that fire, Todd Bowles isn't doing a damn thing about it. And that's the issue. That's the issue. That's why you're going to probably lose. And I know Jay said this earlier in the chat as well. They could win. They could beat the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday, but that doesn't change anything. Now you're just a bad 4-4 team. The Baltimore Ravens have lost games that were close that they should have won because of poor management, usually from Lamar Jackson throwing bad interceptions at the end of games. Right? Like, that's the problem. If you're the Baltimore Ravens. You think Gus Edwards is going to come back with a chip on his shoulder? J.K. Dobbins is down. Gus Edwards just got activated from the PUP list. He put together a great performance on Sunday. You don't think he is licking his chops looking at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense right now? We're in prime time. We're on Thursday Night Football. I'm RB1 now. This defense is absolutely struggling. It's my time to shine. I'm going to put on a hell of a show. And oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson's probably going to put up very close to 100 yards on the ground on you too. If you let Marcus Mariota get 50 yards, Lamar Jackson's going to get a $150 very easily. You can put whoever you want to as a spy. You can put whoever you want to as a spy. That's not going to stop Lamar Jackson. He's 5th in the league in rushing for a reason. Because he's elusive, he's fast, and he's able to do it. And the Bucs can't stop it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what Todd Bowles was talking about when he said we will see how guys handle adversity this week. We'll see who is who. We will. We'll see if anything even changes. Right? It's Tuesday. We've got a game Thursday. If nothing changes, something's got to change. Something's got to happen before the trade deadline. Just problems. Problems all around for these Buccaneers. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing heading into Thursday. Obviously we'll preview the game on Thursday when we do our Thursday Pick'em show, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at all. The Orlando Magic last night in New York City dropped a tough one to the Knicks, man. Not 115 to 102 to the Knicks. This was the second game where they didn't get out to a big lead in the first quarter. The Knicks won the first quarter 34 to 28. But then, the second half, the Magic just kind of unraveled again. Right? And then you're looking and going, all right, well, there's really, once again, nothing coming from the bench. No contributions from the bench. Banchero, 21 points. Wagner, 14 points. Carter, 17 points. Cole Anthony, 14 points. Terrence Ross, 8 points. Yeah, Bobo with 19 off the bench, but you can't just have one guy get you had 13 rebounds off the bench. Right? The Knicks the Knicks didn't do great off the bench either, but they had 21 rebounds off the bench. They had 27 points off the bench. This is the issue that I'm noticing with the Magic is when you're on when their bench, when the rotation is starting, there's issues. Mo Bamba was minus 18 when he was on the court last night. Scored 2 points on 1 of 3 shooting and only had 3 rebounds. Caleb Houston minus 17, 7 points. 2 of 4 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. Banchero had 11 free throw attempts, made 9 of them. The free throws are fine. Free throw shooting's there. They're getting to the stripe and they're knocking them down. But when you've got the bench rotation players starting to come in, you can't have minus 4, minus 17, minus 18, minus 3. Hell, Bull had 19 points off the bench and his plus minus was 0. That's a problem. That's the issue for this Orlando Magic team. The New York Knicks on the other side, Obi Toppin, 10 points off the bench, but he was plus 9. Just as an example. These are the issues that the Magic are having. This is what I'm noticing right now. I thought, maybe the first 1-2 games this was going to be the problem. But this is it right here. This is the issue for the Orlando Magic, is that once the rotation starts coming in, they are in trouble. And you can't depend on your young guys to have to play every single game, right? You can't have them play 48 minutes a game. You've already got Banchero and Dell at 34 and Franz at 36. Terrence Ross at 33. Mo Bamba had 14 minutes in the game last night. Was minus 18. That's a problem. I know we talk about Mo Bamba a lot. Is the experiment over? Should the experiment be over? Kind of. Right? Kind of. this team will look different. In my mind, this team will look different once they get Markel Fultz back, once they get Jalen Suggs back and Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac remains sidelined indefinitely. So you just have no idea how he's going to play. Jalen Suggs, obviously, he underwent an MRI, which confirmed his ankle sprain. So hopefully he can rehab, get back quicker. Over the weekend, Markel Fultz wore a smaller boot around on his foot than what he was wearing. Not wearing that huge moon boot any longer, which is great. That's a good sign of the rehab going well. That the toe is starting to heal up properly. And this team will look different, right? Their backcourt is stacked. Gary Harris is going to be out indefinitely, knee injury. But if you're healthy, you've got Markel Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, and this is just your backcourt. Cole Anthony, RJ Hampton. You've got such a good Terrence Ross, Jalen Suggs. Like, you've got a very solid backcourt. And then you've got a good front court. It just needs to come all together. And it will. This is a young team. I've said this a lot. This is a very young team, and they will come together. I see that happening. They're kind of, no pun intended, but they're kind of limping through the beginning of the season because they've got a lot of injuries. But at this level, there's no excuse, right? There's no excuse at this level for underperforming off of the bench. And I get it. Bench players aren't as good as the starters. I get it, but there's a rotation. Most teams use very similar rotations to where the bench guys are playing against the bench guys. Maybe there's a couple starters in on each side. 1, 2 starters, 3, 4 bench guys. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked, right? But it's not. It's not completely over, right? Like, and I think that's what we have to realize is it's very early in the season. They're 4 games in. Look at the Milwaukee Bucks have only played 2 games. Right? The Milwaukee Bucks have only played 2 games. The Miami Heat are 1-3. Right? The Sixers finally got their first win of the season. So we're the only winless team in the East. When you go out to the West, you've got the Lakers. Depending on who you ask, the Lakers are always out of the West. Are supposed to be one of the top teams. And you can't necessarily disagree. You've got LeBron James, you've got Patrick Beverly, you've got Russell Westbrook, no matter what you think of Westbrook. You've also got Anthony Davis, who is healthy. But the Lakers have not won a game. The Kings haven't won a game, and neither have the Thunder. It's not entirely over, right? You're only 4 games into the season if you're the Orlando Magic. You still have 78 more games to go. There's a lot of time to figure it out and learn the things that you need to learn. They're averaging 107.3 points per game. Their differential is only 8 points. They're 0-4 and their differential is only 8 points. They can figure it out. There's still plenty of time, but we've got to get some contribution from the bench. I'm tired of having to start. Of talking about the Magic looking great until the bench starts coming in. Right? That's when the wheels for the Magic fall off, is when the bench players start coming in. Can you depend on 19 from Bol Bol every night? No. You can't. Now, if you can distribute 19 points around the bench, I'm okay with that. But you can't depend on one guy who is not dependable, like Bull to have 19 points off your bench. You can't depend on that. That's the problem. That's the issue that needs to be addressed for the Magic. Switch up some rotation. I know it's difficult right now because you're kind of limping around with injuries. I get it. But figure out a different system. Figure out how to rotate guys differently, right? Like that's what we have to do if we're Jamal Mosley and we're looking at, all right, here's where we stand right now is we're contending, we're competing, and for the majority of these 4 games, we've been winning when our starters are on the floor. So how can we utilize this better? Right? They're in Cleveland tomorrow. That's going to be another tough game. Karis LeVert, Donovan Mitchell. I'm not sure if Darius Garland is going to be playing, but this is going to be another tough game for the Orlando Magic tomorrow because the Cavs should be a playoff team this season, especially with the moves that they made. The new look Cleveland Cavaliers are a very solid team. I thought the Knicks were good. The Knicks right now are the biggest. That's the biggest loss that this team has suffered. And we know that basketball is realistically it's a game of matchups. We all know that. We know that basketball is a game of matchups, right? Sometimes a team just has your number because they match up better against you. But that was their biggest defeat of the season was to the New York Knicks, which maybe they're going to be like the Seahawks this year in New York. I'm sure Knicks fans would love to see the Knicks kind of reemerge. I don't think it'll happen, but hey, who am I? But yes, Cleveland tomorrow. We'll have to see what happens there. We'll have to see if any adjustments get made off of the bench, off of their rotations, to try and plant some of the starters in at various times. Maybe start making your substitutions earlier in the game. Right? Maybe try that. It's still early in the season, so there's still plenty of time to try different strategies, try different game plans, and see what works. Throw everything at the wall and just see what sticks. Everybody enjoy, if you're staying up late, enjoy the Lightning and Kings game tonight. I might watch like the first, I don't know, 5 minutes of the game. It's just such a late time. That's going to do it for us on this Tuesday edition of Channelside in the Morning. If you want to chop it up with me, hit me up at Real Danny B on Twitter. Please search for the Channelside Sports Network on all of the social media platforms if you're interested in not missing a beat from Tampa's next generation of sports talk. We're going to do it all over again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have to talk about a Lightning win. Maybe something happens today after the show goes off. Maybe something happens today with the Buccaneers. Maybe a move gets made. Maybe some rumors come out. Never know. We're going to do it all over again tomorrow. I'm Danny. I will see you on